Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Stephanie and thank you so much for joining me, especially on a day like today where I felt called to open up on my healing journey and hopes to inspire others wanting to walk down a similar path. I consciously decided to go down a healing journey physically, spiritually, and mentally. With what I initially thought started out as physical hurdles, in which I sought out a holistic naturopathic doctor, the journey also shed light that these physical hurdles were being brought on by mental and spiritual blocks. Now, because I know all of us have our own perceptions on what each of these topics may entail, I'll gladly explain my viewpoints throughout this channel and how they've all enhanced my life for the better and how they all eventually integrate should you choose growth. To sort of just dive on in, some of my history as a child that I believe pertains to my health as an adult, and in case any of you all can relate, was that I managed stress poorly. Whenever faced with uncomfortable situations, I would hold on to that tension within the pit of my stomach. So much so I believe that's why I had developed the shingles when I was about 12. I also had eczema along my knuckles, which seemed to have gone away throughout my teenage years, but came back with a vengeance, to where the rash crept up my fingers, taking away my cuticles, making my nail crinkly and curved. Now, I also fainted about 2 or 3 times in my early 20s and continue to feel the sensations, but got better at avoiding it by sitting or lying down. I thought to have been leading a relatively healthy lifestyle. I enjoyed incorporating fruits and veggies in my meals and worked out regularly. It wasn't until after having my son that I noticed a further decline in my health. So some symptoms that I can recall included hot flashes, tonsil stones, a reoccurring yeast infection, especially when I hadn't ever had one prior, skin changes, extreme fatigue from my norm. Whenever I would consume anything with caffeine, my heart rate would accelerate, but I'm sure that's also due to added artificial sugars. Severe stomach pain, especially after consuming acidic foods. Chest pain, which I assumed was acid reflux, but because breast cancer does run in my family, I made sure to take that time to check my body for any bumps, and I did come across multiple swollen glands all throughout my body. I remember going out with the family for breakfast one morning, and as we all stood up to get ready to leave, my back goes out in that exact moment. I was so embarrassed because I could not move. It would hurt even if I tried. And I remember thinking to myself, I am way too young for my back to be going out, as if that should be considered normal at any given age. At this point, I decided to take up my concerns with a conventional doctor, where she ushered me to seeing different specialists such as a gastrologist, a neurologist, a cardiologist, and a radiologist, where we took many different types of exams, only confirming some of what I had already known, but still leaving me with unclear answers, and dizzy after being pointed into so many directions. Also, being pulled upon financially added more stress. The doctor wanted to prescribe me antidepressants, but because I felt as though the antacids that she had previously prescribed me weren't really working, if anything, I felt like they were contributing to more bloating, I didn't want to go on any more medications. Now, while I do believe that modern medicine has its time and place and can help many people, it just wasn't what I needed at that point in time in my journey. After a lot was said and done, I began experiencing symptoms that I could no longer just brush under the rug. I began to experience twitching, and the best way that I can describe it is like, when you have a twitching sensation in your eyelid? Well, I was feeling that all throughout my body. So much so that I recorded my stomach once because it literally looked like I had a baby kicking in there. I would also feel like there was a hair in my arm, and when I would go to brush it away, I realized that was not a hair. It seemed like there was liquid running through my veins. At this point, I took up my concerns with the World Wide Web, which is probably what I shouldn't have done, because we all know how much information you can be exposed to, especially when you're not exactly sure what it is you're looking for or how to properly credit sources. I came across a world of heavy metals. There are many individuals and groups with platforms speaking on how heavy metals have changed their life for the worst, how they're living their everyday with symptoms that they can't seem to rid of, and how they have seemed to cut their lives short. This sent me into the biggest depression of my life. During my depression, I would head to the restroom and turn on the water in hopes to feel at peace enough to fall asleep. I had a loss of appetite and I was extremely emotional. Now, I don't want to trigger someone who is currently going through health issues, and I don't want you to pity someone that you know is, or even my past self. I'm sharing my hardships to get you all to understand that if I can come out through the other side, then so can you. Pitying yourself or anyone only implies that they are incapable of doing what they need to in order to better their lives. And we don't ever want to place that energy onto ourselves or project that out onto anyone else. I truly do believe that no matter what your given circumstance, should you hold a glimpse of hope, you can then manifest the best possible outcome it is, given your situation. Because if you solely focus on fear, doubt, and lack, should an opportunity arise, you might not even see it. I am grateful that I went through these hardships now looking back on it. It was the catalyst to change. I knew that I needed to think outside of the box because what I was doing wasn't working. My mother had always encouraged me to seek out a holistic doctor. I just honestly didn't know what it entailed. I perceived it to be a gamble that either may or may not work. Until one day I was like, you know what? Let's take this to Instagram. Instagram has so many people pushing their products and services that I thought, why not a knowledgeable practitioner? So then I began to hashtag holistic doctors, holistic healing, and I started to come across practitioners that spoke on healing the body through foods, herbs, and detoxes, clearly confident in being able to help others. This gave me hope. The beneficial aspects to choosing a holistic practitioner on a platform such as Instagram is that you're able to decipher whether or not they genuinely know what they're talking about, a bit on their personality, and if their practices resonate with you. I followed my intuition, which is how I came across the holistic naturopathic doctor that I worked with. We can discuss what teaming up with a holistic doctor looks like and what leading a holistic lifestyle entails in the next video. I understand how difficult it may seem to lead a healthy lifestyle. I understand that because of the pressures that we receive from society, being accustomed to the way that we were raised, constantly buying fresh produce, especially if you have children, and detoxing from specific addictive foods is hard, but so is living with uncomfortable symptoms that constantly bring worry about your health, consuming foods that drain your energy, and unconsciously feeling shame or guilt tied to foods that you believe aren't good for you. They're both hard, but you get to choose your hard. And I'd rather go for the path that with consistency, willpower, and structure will eventually lead to a healthier mindset that will then trickle into every other aspect of your life. With repetition, things get easier. And there are more and more individuals out there with ideas and insights pushing foods, products, services, and books to help you navigate this journey, some of which I've found for free and some of which I've paid for, both holding equal value. My reality really began to shift when I began to embody this mindset that everything in life was happening for me and not to me, and that there are multiple solutions toward any given problem. And that when met with life's resistance, that was an invitation to level up and learn a life's lesson if we so choose. Seen as how nothing is a one-size-fits-all and we're all on our own unique journeys and time frames, my wish is that these videos reach those that they are meant to and that you take what resonates. Side note, I am not a doctor and everyone's body is unique. Always seek out a qualified practitioner before making any lifestyle changes or assumptions. Sending you all so much love and healing vibes. Take care.